Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, and today I want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks, who have had one of the best off seasons out of anybody in the East. I'd say out of all the Eastern Conference teams, they've probably had my favorite. They've built out a dynamic, really well-fitting roster around Trae Young, their star point guard, and I believe he now is the best supporting cast he has ever had. And it gives them a real chance to not only win a playoff series for the first time since 2021, but make it to the conference finals for the second time in the Trae era. If things really break their way, if the pieces click the way that they potentially can, if they can stay healthy and get the right matchups in what is a somewhat weakened Eastern Conference with, of course, Boston and Indiana being out of the picture. They're not one of my front runners to make the conference finals, but it's not out of the question. So let's go ahead and talk about what I like so much about this Hawks team. Last season, they made some strides. They went 40-42, just 2 games below 500. Trae was again really good, an exceptional playmaker, led the league in assists. It's kind of what he's done throughout his career, but he was supported a bit more now defensively. Dyson Daniels is one of the top finishers in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He ends up winning Most Improved, led the league in steals, had one of the best deflection seasons of all time. Dyson was a monster, and to get him for DeJounte Murray was a steal. Not to mention, when you consider the fact that they themselves lost the DeJounte Murray trade and then won the DeJounte Murray trade that when they dealt him away, it was a good recovery for Atlanta after making that move that I was never a fan of and clearly didn't end up working out. Jalen Johnson was awesome when he was playing. He did deal with injury, which has been an issue for Jalen Johnson throughout the early going of his career. Hopefully that doesn't affect him this season. That is kind of a swing factor for Atlanta, but Jalen Johnson was awesome. I think had a chance at an all-star spot and had a chance at MIP himself if he didn't, of course, like I said, miss a lot of games with injury. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was really solid for them as a big. Zaccharie Risacher came in as the #1 overall pick and had a really good rookie season, one that kind of flew under the radar because it didn't pop off the page the way that a lot of other #1 overall picks in history have, but it was just really solid across the board, especially as time went on. He got more and more efficient. I liked a lot of the defensive flashes he showed, and that was all at 19 years old. DeAndre Hunter was awesome for them. They end up dealing him away at the deadline to the Cavaliers, and they do end up missing the playoffs, but all in all, pretty successful season, I would say. They took steps forward. They had their best record since 2022, and they ended up going into this summer with a lot more optimism surrounding them, at least on my end. I'm like, hey, I don't really think they have to trade Trae Young anymore. I went to last season thinking, yeah, that's inevitable within the next summer or two. But now it's like, okay, well, Trae can be this high-level playmaker for Risacher and Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And if you make the right moves around them, then suddenly you've got a pretty intriguing core of young guys that still have a lot of potential to grow. And they built off that perfectly over the course of this summer. I love them bringing in Kristaps Porzingis. I know he's had concerns with staying on the court, whether it was last year, that mysterious illness that we still really don't know much at all about, or other injuries that have popped up throughout his career. When he's on the court, KP is really, really good. He is an amazing floor-stretching, shot-blocking big, which is exactly what this Hawks team needs. They need to continue to add defense because Trae is a big liability. He's been trying more than ever the past couple of seasons, but he's never going to be a good defender because of his size. And so you add another defender alongside Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who they also bring in, who I'll talk about in a moment, and Risacher, and suddenly you've got a lot of really solid defensive pieces around Trae to mask that weakness of his, and a legitimate skeleton of what I believe can be a pretty solid defensive team next year. I'm not saying they're going to be like top 10 or top 5, but if they can just hold their ground and be solid offensively, that is the makings of a pretty good team, because I trust Trae to elevate this team on the offensive end, and adding KP is going to help with that too. Trae has never played with a legitimate floor-stretching 5, and now he gets to run pick and pops with them. He's also, of course, KP, a big-time lob threat. He can knock down shots in the mid-range, has like crazy range too. Like he can not only spot up like right there on the perimeter, but can step a few feet out. He is a massive weapon to give to Trae Young as one of the best playmakers in the sport. And they needed the shooting because Dyson's not really that premier outside threat. Jalen Johnson is still figuring it out, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker can knock down some threes in very limited volume. Risacher took big steps, but of course he's a young player. Like, they needed some outside shooting. So KP brings that. He brings more defense. He brings a unique weapon that Quinn Snyder and this Hawks team have not had over the last couple of years. And that's similar for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who they also bring in, and I love it. Over the last couple of years, Nickeil Alexander-Walker in Minnesota developed into one of the best role-playing wings in the sport. I think a lot of people think about him as this 3-and-D player, which he's definitely capable of. He's great at knocking down the outside shot. Again, another weapon for Trae Young in this offense. He is really good defensively. Again, someone to help out with that lack of defense coming from Trae. But even more so, he's able to put the ball on the deck. He's able to create a little bit, play make a little bit. He is a much more versatile wing than I think people realize. And here in Atlanta, I expect him to get a lot of run, have a big time role, and be a big time reason why the Hawks are going to jump in the Eastern Conference. I think he's one of the ideal role-playing wings to have next to a Trae Young on this roster. And that comes with the growth I do expect from the young guys. Like, I loved a lot of what I saw offensively from Dyson Daniels last year in terms of growth. You know, none of it was perfect by any means, but it's a lot better than what we'd seen in the past. And I think there's still a lot of room for him to improve. And I do believe he will capture some of that development this season. Jalen Johnson, one of the best transition weapons in the sport, a freight train getting downhill. And I think the improved spacing of this team is going to make that a lot easier. Again, I'm just so high on Jalen Johnson. I love what he's done the past couple of seasons. And I think there's a legitimate shot. In fact, I think it's somewhat likely that he is an all-star in this Eastern Conference. Like I said with Risacher, had a great end to his rookie season, and if he carries some of that over, he could be like a 38% shooting, pretty solid defensive wing. Again, another perfect player to have on this roster. I like what Mo Gay did last season for them in the front court, someone that I think really flew under the radar in the back half of that Hawks season. Asa Newell, I think, is an interesting pickup too, late in the first round. I love them adding Luke Kennard as another shooter. Again, just trying to provide more and more spacing for some of those interior guys that they have. One of the guys that is going to swing things for them is Kobe Buffkin. They drafted him in the top 20 a couple of years ago. He hasn't managed to materialize into a real rotation player yet, but he's just 21 years old, turning 22 going into the season, and did have some nice flashes in summer league. So that is one spot I'm keeping an eye on. Like, they are going to need good guard play, and I do think Nickeil can do a little bit of that extra playmaking beyond Trae Young. But if Kobe Buffkin isn't able to be a real-time rotation player, they need to add another guard. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. That is one area of concern I do have. And of course, if Kristaps Porzingis can't stay on the court, if they deal with injury issues to Jalen Johnson, those things could all realistically derail this team. Like, there are question marks. They are nowhere near as solidified as, say, like the Cleveland Cavaliers or the New York Knicks in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference for me. But I think if guys stay on the court and it clicks the way that I think it can, like, there are a lot of really smart basketball players on this team, a lot of really talented guys, a lot of young players that can show development. I think there's a world where they're a top 3 to 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. And if matchups go their way, if, you know, a team that they end up facing is dealing with injury, they could be back in the conference finals. Like, there is a world where the Atlanta Hawks make it to the NBA finals if things really, really break their way. I'm not going to go that far. I think if I had to predict right now, I'd probably have them as a second round exit. But to win a playoff series and go from last summer, where there were a lot of discussions about when are they going to trade Trae Young, how do they blow this thing up, to now, I feel like general optimism from most people I've talked to about this Hawks team. It's been impressive. I think they've done a really good job. Also, Quinn Snyder, good head coach, someone that I trust to get the most out of a lot of these players. I think the Hawks are going to be really fun. I think they're going to be better than most casual fans realize. I think they're going to shock some people next season. And hey, if the Atlanta Hawks are back in the conference finals for the second time of the Trae Young era, don't be super surprised. And there's still room for them to make a big time splash if they want to. Like, they have a very intriguing package of draft picks and young talent. I'm not saying that they're going to, you know, blow some other offers out of the water. Like, I don't think they could match some of the stuff that San Antonio can throw out there, maybe like a Houston or an Oklahoma City. If any of those, you know, big time war chest juggernauts decide to go after a star, then Atlanta might not be able to match them. But they do have an intriguing package if a star becomes available. So that's something else to keep an eye on. A few names that I'm thinking about that I won't put out there that I think would be pretty fun here. Giannis, if Giannis ends up going on the market, I think Giannis would be super fun next to Trae Young in Atlanta. But anyways, those are some of my thoughts on the Atlanta Hawks. Again, one of my biggest winners of the offseason, I think my favorite offseason out east. They've done a phenomenal job, and I'm really excited to see this team. Let me know down below in the comments what your expectations are for the Atlanta Hawks going into next season. I feel like I didn't even talk about Trae Young that much, but Trae is just a phenomenal playmaker. I think he's taken some strides playing off the ball. I feel like he's gotten better in that regard, and Trae still to me is underrated. I think I've been higher than a lot of other people on Trae Young over the last couple of years. I think he's very capable of elevating this team, and I'm excited to see him try. But yeah, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Let me know your thoughts on the Hawks down below and what other teams you want to see a video on over the course of this offseason, because we've got a lot of time to kill. But for the moment, I appreciate watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.